You never hear about haunted retirement homes,
That's
right?
interesting, yeah.
Right? So have you experienced anything spooky?
I gotta say, there was one time where...
Would you believe what it's like to work in a retirement home? Hi everybody, it's Rebecca Rogers, your host. I'm so happy that you're here today, and I'm so happy to introduce you to my friend, Stove.
What up, everyone?
So before we get started, I do want to make a little bit of a disclaimer. In a lot of the episodes that we've seen so far, we've seen a lot of grown adults make conscious choices to use and abuse employees at various occupations. And the difference in this episode is that when we're talking about retirement homes, there are usually individuals in these places who might not be able to make conscious choices when it comes to their words and their actions. So I just kind of want to clarify that when we talk about these kinds of situations, even though a lot of these people in these stories might not be in their right mind and might not be able to consciously choose their actions and their words towards other people, there are still workers who are dealing with those situations and dealing with those consequences. So I don't want any of these stories to become misconstrued that we're making fun of anyone in that kind of situation who is getting older and might not be in their right mind. It's more acknowledging that these are working conditions that people in this profession are dealing with, and these are treatments that these people are experiencing. And I just really wanted to make that clear because anyone that watches any of my other content knows that I'm a very big advocate of looking at other perspectives and taking a walk in someone else's shoes. I always say that the first step to accepting each other is understanding each other. So even though we are looking at experiences that these workers are dealing with and things that they maybe shouldn't have to when they go to work, I don't want it to be misconstrued as making fun of anyone who is not able to control their words and their actions in any way, shape, or form, because that's not fair either. Some of these things are situations where there really isn't a winner. It's not fair. Like there's just some things in life that aren't fair for anyone, but there are still people dealing with those. So just wanted to make that clear.
It's out of their control.
Right,
so,
exactly, exactly. Just want to make sure we're on the same page with that. But Stove, now we can highlight you a little bit. Why don't you tell everyone a little bit about you, your background, your journey. You started, well, your first job was working in a retirement home, but now you're a full-time content creator. I want to hear all about you and your journey. Take it away.
What a jump from a retirement home to a content creator, you know? That's just, I will say, so hello everyone, my name is Stove, and I make content on YouTube and all social platforms nowadays, like everything now, right? That's like the normal thing to do now, right?
Yes.
I gotta say, I started my first YouTube channel actually back in 2008.
Wow.
Yeah.
How old were you?
Like 15, 16
Holy
or so.
moly.
And so and my first YouTube channel actually was like a tech channel. At the time, it was more like a hobby. Shortly after that, I had another job as like a full-time 9-to-5 analyst kind of job.
Oh.
And that led me to kind of not being happy in my life at the time. So then I quit, and then I started like applying for like freelance jobs, editing jobs. And then that's how Carter found me.
Yeah.
And that's how I just got into Team R found me. And then that's how my whole journey began from there.
But while you were creating your first little bit of content, doing your hobby, doing tech stuff, you also started a job at a retirement home.
I did.
That is not a very conventional job for a 16-year-old.
Yeah, normally I feel like it's like
fast food. What made you decide, that's what I'm going to do after school?
So the main reason was because of the distance to my house. To be honest.
Okay.
And also,
everyone has their reasons.
It's like probably like a 1-minute drive.
Oh, that's not bad.
I probably could have walked too, like a 5 minute.
Important.
Very important. And so, and my friend also worked there too.
Oh, that's fun.
So I was like, hey, like if you could, like at the time, because I played sports growing up too.
Okay.
And so like trying to balance sports and like going out with friends, I was like, I need money. Like I need a job. And so I'm trying to think, I don't want to work at a fast food spot because that just sounds, to me, like I just can't deal with that much.
No, yeah,
like customer service wise.
Yeah, 100%.
And so I was like, you know what? Like I was talking to my friend, he was like, yeah, I'm working on a retirement home. I'm like, oh, like what do you do? He's like, it's super like chill, laid back. Like you just gotta like, he's a waiter, so he's like, you just gotta like serve food, and normally it's like set set meals every day. So I was like, oh, okay, that sounds pretty easy. And the pay was at the time good as a 15-year-old. And I was like, oh, that's perfect. And so that's just how I got into it.
Okay, so what did your like daily tasks look like? Like, what did you do? What were all your responsibilities when you worked there?
The main thing I was in charge of was just preparing all the food. And so like we'd have like set menus every day and like all the names of the residents, like, hey, this person, like Mr. Johnson wants broccoli and mac and cheese today or something. Like, and so then I would just prepare all the food with the cooks in the kitchen.
Awesome. So was it like itemized or like individualized for different people based on like things? Obviously, like you have dietary restrictions and things like that.
Yeah, of course, obviously.
But they got to just choose what they wanted every day. That's so cool.
Yeah. So they would come in, and then I think it's like also the chef comes in like, hey, these are the ingredients we have. So they'll like send out like, hey, these are kind of dishes. What do you guys want to?
I like that.
So,
I don't know much about retirement homes. I have both sets of my grandparents that are alive, but they're still at home, kind of being cared for by family members or just by themselves. So I don't know anything really about retirement homes. Like, so this is fascinating.
I feel like a lot of people think retirement homes are just like extensions of like hospitals or something. You know, just like you just put like your grandparents there and you kind of just leave them. But
people just leave them?
Well, I don't know. Like I feel like some people might do that. Like, hey, like I'm done dealing with you, and kind of like. I've heard stories like that, like on Reddit. I'm like, what? That's so mean.
Actually, someone did send me a story about it just kind of made me think of that. And I just assumed this was a one-off because it just kind of shattered my heart.
Yeah.
But they were a caregiver in a retirement home. And there was one of the caretakers kind of gave special attention to some of the older people whose families didn't come to visit them, which is so sad. She wanted to make sure that they didn't feel alone, that they had company and someone to talk to each day, which I thought was very sweet.
And it's super important too.
Right.
Yeah.
But apparently one of those individuals was taken home for Christmas, and afterwards they called the retirement home screaming because all their father could talk about at Christmas was how Miss Sarah came to visit every day, and Miss Sarah brought snacks, and Miss Sarah brought games. And it made the family feel bad.
Yeah.
And it made them feel like they weren't visiting enough. And so instead of deciding to just come visit more, they decided they wanted Miss Sarah to stop visiting every day.
That's
because they would rather their dad just sit there in isolation and not have any friends or contact or anybody with someone visiting them every day than being bothered.
That is
so sad. It just made them feel bad.
Yeah.
You know? Can you just make me stop feeling bad about being neglectful?
Yeah. That makes no sense. It's like, it's your dad, first of all. And if he's talking about someone that's like someone who he cares about or someone who cares about him, like, why would you block that person off, you know?
Right.
Like,
that's just so...
making them so miserable now.
Right. Like, I'd rather they be lonely than me actually having to step up. So could you not make them feel good about themselves?
Yeah.
Like I just
make them
don't
feel
understand.
bad. Like, especially like your own family too, to do that to like your own family, that it makes no sense to me.
That's so wrong. Did you have a lot of interaction with some of the people who were staying at the retirement home?
Yeah, I was actually like, I would know everyone by like name.
That's good.
And like know them like personally, and over time you kind of get to know them. But like I will say the one like probably like the worst thing about working at a retirement home though is just you get a connection with these people, right? And you're preparing their meals and whatnot, and then sometimes I like have the meal set out already for them, and like Mr. Johnson, he didn't show up today. A couple days later, I'll get a like from my manager like, hey, like it was his time. I was like,
I'm gonna start crying.
Yeah, I'm starting to tear a little bit, and
I'm gonna start crying.
And it sucks really bad because like you get a connection with these people, and like they tell you stories and like their life, and it's like something that you recognize they kind of need to this. Have a conversation with, you know, sometimes I feel like they get lonely and like, you know, family members aren't visiting as often as they want to. And so like the waiters there, it was like one big family, and we'd all just be like talking and like, hey, what's up, man? And like being like really like a family. So that's probably the worst part of the whole time working there,
devastating.
So.
And it's one of those bittersweet things of, you know, you do your, I assume, because again, I don't have that experience, but like you go and you have this whole goal of making them feel loved and comfortable and not lonely, but you also have to know that, you know, it is the end of the line for some people. And that's so hard. Like I'm someone that I don't do well with like death and
Yeah.
things like that. Like
It's so hard to deal with, yeah.
So that takes like special kind of people. Like kudos to you, because that's so difficult.
It is rough. It's like, and that didn't happen it happened like a handful of times while I was working there too. So it's like, and you can't really prepare for it either.
Right.
Because you're like coming to work like, oh yeah, I'm gonna prepare this meal. Like Cynthia's about to have the best meal, and then you get the news and you're like, well, my week's just ruined now. Like I'm just gonna not do anything for the rest of the day.
Oh,
So,
that's so upsetting.
but that's just part of, I think, what comes with the job, though. You kind of like have to have that kind of expectation. Like
You have to be ready
Exactly.
at any given time.
Yeah.
Which is so hard, but at the same time, it's so necessary.
Yeah.
Because like that job still is so necessary and so important. And that's a
100%.
really, I guess, I feel like doctors and nurses, I know it's so different. Like there's so many different things. Because I just know someone in the comment section is going to be like, are you saying that nurses, like, no.
Are you discrediting them?
No,
Like,
I'm not. But just being aware that, it's possible.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine. I mean, I guess even as a teacher, which
Yeah.
is so awful to say, I'm very fortunate that I, as a teacher, has never had to experience the news of a student passing or anything like that. Thank goodness. Because
Yeah.
I would not have been able to handle that well.
So when you hear like horror stories around across the nation, you're probably like, oh
Yes.
my gosh.
Well, I have had close calls. I have gotten calls that a student's in the hospital, this happened, whether it was intentional, unintentional. I've experienced both, and I was an absolute wreck. So I know that I'm someone that does not deal with death very well, and so I highly commend, is that the word I'm looking for? I don't even know. I highly
commend, yeah, that's a good word, yeah.
people who are able to deal with that on a daily basis, whether it be in a hospital setting or a retirement home, like any of those settings.
Yeah. Like
Even
anything
vets.
medical wise. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Vets.
That-
Don't even get me started on that now.
That I
Oh
could
my
not deal
gosh.
with.
That is.
As we have freaking Furball sitting here. I swear to goodness, and people who are listening will have no idea. I feel like Vixie's tail, my cat, is like is just swaying in one of our camera angles.
It's like one of those filters, like Snapchat
Right.
filters,
Just for those who don't know, this is my cat's house.
Yeah.
She owns
it.
place. But
You're just in her world.
Oh yeah, yes, we all are.
Yeah.
Truly. So we talked about the worst part. The
Yeah.
thing that you hated about work. Not necessarily hated, but
Yeah.
I mean, how can you not hate something like that?
Yeah.
But what was your absolute favorite part of working in a retirement?
It was just how close everyone was too. Like like I was saying, it was like a family, and everyone was just so nice to each other. And from the managers all the way down to the workers, and obviously all the residents there they were probably the sweetest people I've ever met. The residents, like absolutely just so sweet and absolute gems, in your words, gems.
Gems of people.
Yeah, they're diamonds of people.
Yeah. So something that I've said before in some different episodes is that, for the most part, in every profession, you have people who are trying their best, who are always there for the right reasons. But in every profession, there are always people who are not there for the right reasons, whether it be teachers or nurses, vets. There's always individuals who give others an unfortunate name. Have you ever experienced anyone working in a retirement home, or just anyone in a retirement home who might fit that description?
Just like kind of, gave the whole retirement home a bad name kind of vibe, or just kind of like a bad reputation. There was one person actually that
T.
the T. Here's that.
I saw your eyes light up and I got excited.
Because I was trying to like thinking about all the workers. But this is more so like, I guess there's two guys and a girl worker. So it was like kind of like almost like a love triangle kind of thing. I guess this doesn't give it a bad rep. More so it was just like an inner conflict, I guess.
Oh no, between the workers?
Between the workers and some tension.
Are these also teenagers, or were they?
We're all
adults?
teenagers.
Okay,
Everyone's teenagers. So keep in mind, 15, 16-year-old.
Okay.
Hormones are like flying everywhere,
Did you have like adults working also?
Yeah, so our
Your
managers.
department kind of thing? Just the managers?
It's just the managers, not the.
Oh.
Yeah, none of the workers were. Yeah, we're all like 15, 16 years
So it's
old.
pretty much like a camp counselor kind of vibe.
Yeah, I guess you could. Yeah. I didn't even think about it that way, but yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Because like if you're at like a normal, I feel like a fast food spot, there's gonna be a mix of like old people, young people, right?
Right.
But yeah, I guess now that I think back,
So like,
it is like a summer camp vibe.
That's what working there was kind of like. Yeah, you're all camp counselors for just larger children.
Yeah.
Older
Large-
children. Yeah.
Maybe adults, basically.
Well, you made me think of another story when you mentioned the love triangle.
Oh, let's hear the tea.
So someone sent me a story about how there was an older man staying at the retirement home whose family decided they actually wanted to move him back into their house. So the night before he checked out, he decided, you know what? Screw it. And he decided he was going to host a strip poker game.
No, at the retirement home?
Through his whole floor. And everybody went. And none of the caretakers knew in time. And so by the time they heard and were like, oh God, we gotta
It's
get
too
up
late
there.
now.
It was too late. And they were just completely bare older people reeling each other around.
No.
Big old smiles on their faces. Like
The
they
happiest
had
day.
the best time, apparently. But they were like, oh no. We could get in so much trouble from their families. Yeah. There's old people strip poker. Apparently that's like a normal thing that happens.
That actually kind of sounds...
I mean, they're consenting adults.
Yeah.
You know, and it just I get very uncomfortable thinking about my grandparents in that situation.
Yeah, I'm like, if they just, the visuals kind of popped up quickly. I'm like, no, get it out. Get it out now. No. But hey, they're living their best life.
They are truly, hopefully. That's
you know?
the whole goal, that they're living their best lives.
Yeah, exactly.
With their friends.
I feel like it should be like a weekly thing then, you know? Kind of...
I don't want to go.
For them. No, not for me either. No.
Well,
I'm good off that.
I don't know why that kind of reminded me of another story, kind of. There was an older woman at the retirement home who was dealing with dementia, things like that.
Yeah.
And one of the caretakers closely had similar features to her daughter.
Okay.
The daughter didn't visit very often, but sometimes the older woman thought that the caretaker was her daughter. But because the daughter didn't visit very often, she just kind of let her experience her daughter visiting her.
Yeah.
And she would go every day, read to her, bring her snacks, and just listen to this woman talk to her as if she was her child.
Yeah.
Every single day.
That's so
And
nice.
that warms my heart so much. She needed that.
Yeah, 100%.
She 100% needed that. And I love that there are people like that in the world.
Just willing to give more than just be like selfish. Because like, this world is just heading towards that route of, especially with social media too.
Oh my gosh, yes. Well, and I've just heard in so many of the stories that people send me, I've just seen so many unfortunate examples of individuals signing up to work at retirement homes because they just assume, oh, they're old, I can just sit on my phone and no one will notice.
Yeah.
Or if they say that I'm not doing something, they won't be able to speak up.
Exactly.
Or there have been, I've received so many stories of caretakers who have made such an effort to get to know some of the residents that once they build kind of a relationship, they then confide in, well, this caretaker withholds food from me. This caretaker screams at me and curses at me. And it's just so gross.
Yeah.
Because one, why would you ever treat a person that way?
Just in general.
Two,
yeah.
why would you treat someone who is so vulnerable? They're away from their family. They're older. They might not be able to do everything by themselves. They might need a little bit of extra help.
Yep.
You know, obviously they're in an assisted living facility kind of thing. Like, that's just so gross that someone would consciously choose to treat someone, anyone, especially someone in that situation, poorly. And I just, again, it's one of those things where, you know, hopefully and thankfully, most people going into this kind of work really do have the purest intentions, want to help, but it's those few individuals who
that ruin it for the rest of us.
Ruin it for everybody. Get the most attention. It's bad attention, but get the most attention and really like can set up stereotypes for people in this line of work. And I just hate it. I just hate it.
Yeah, because like there's also like movies and stuff too that like kind of depict that. You know, those scenes of like, oh, I just left my retirement, I left my mom here, but they're just being treated so poorly. It's like, but why? Like, why would you do that to people? It's just in general too, especially an elderly person who, you know, might not be able to physically do things on their own, and then you're just like mistreating them, and it's like.
I feel like people in retirement homes are some of the individuals who need the most compassion and empathy.
Yeah.
If not, like, because whether they're living their best life there or not, there are a lot of individuals who get sent to retirement homes who want to be at home with their families. They don't want to go to those kinds of things. They need that extra love and care and
the
compassion and empathy. Like I cannot stand people who would even consider taking advantage of that kind of situation. Like, that's just gross behavior.
Oh.
And I
should be fired.
I can't. Yeah, no. Well, it can be so hard to do that in a lot of occupations because one, someone has to speak up, someone has to say something about it. And two, there are so many places that are short-staffed and can't necessarily afford to replace them. And I don't mean that just keeping someone that's treating people this way is the right answer, but the issue is there is no right answer.
Yeah, it's just like, it's a tricky situation.
Right. And I feel like you have such a problem when people, because I've seen this happen in a lot of professions, people go in with good intentions in the purest of hearts, but then because they're so short-staffed, because there are not always the easiest residents and not always we just talked about the family that was like, how dare you spend extra time with my parents, blah, 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 blah. And there's so much stress and there's just so much, I can't even think of the word that I'm thinking of right now. I was like burnt outness, but that's not the one. That's not how you say that.
Well, we'll use it though.
Burnt outness.
Burnt outness, new word acquired.
But they kind of turn bitter, and that's really the worst. Like, that's so hard because the kind of situation that these working environments has created has made it so much harder to keep people that keep people in the right mindset to work in these kinds of places. And it's just kind of a vicious cycle of, okay, well, we'll kick them out, but now we're short-staffed, so it's turning more people bitter. And whether it's retirement homes, teaching, oh my gosh, like that,
Oh, I mean, I feel like it's everywhere, any workforce, I think. It's like the situation and the environment just creates this tension, this bad mindset sometimes, but it's just like out of your control.
Right.
Because you're just like, coming in with a great mindset, an open mindset, and all of a sudden you see the situation, you're like, dude, I'm closed-minded now.
Right, right. And I think there's also something that people who work in jobs and occupations where you're dealing with people, whether it be children, like in teaching, whether it be in retirement homes with elderly people, like these are all individuals who need extra care. And I feel like then when people experience injustices at work or treated poorly, or even if there are just situations that are out of their control and they just are venting about it, there's so often that these employees are berated, whether by their bosses or their family members or just society in general of, well, how dare you talk that way about kids? Like, they're just kids, or do it for the kids, or like these older people, they are, at the end of the road, or they might be experiencing illnesses, or they can't really control what they're saying. How dare you complain? Like, they almost kind of make it so that these individuals venting is like, well, why are you talking bad? Well, you're not really talking bad. You're just acknowledging that these are the working conditions that exist. Like, for example, someone sent me a story of how there was an older woman who had an accident, and they were like, we need to change you. Like, it's now you have feces running down your leg. Like, we have to change you. No, I need to get to bingo because I want to get there before Kathy. I want the better seat. I don't want Kathy to take my seat. And they're like, we'll get you changed, but you have to change first. We'll get you going. We'll get you there before Kathy, but we have got to change you first. And she wouldn't let them, so they had to hold her down.
Oh my gosh.
Which is not a situation anyone ever wants to find themselves in. Like, no one is a winner. It's just unfair overall. She's fighting with them. They're trying to force her to, they're like, your family would be very upset if we let you sit in this all day. It's your quality of life. We cannot let you.
And medically too. Like, I feel like you get rashes too. It's like,
So as they were changing her, I guess one of her hands wiggled free and she grabbed her dirty diaper and just shoved it in one of her caretaker's faces. And that's one of those situations where whether she consciously chose to do that or whether, it just happened, which sometimes those outbursts just do. They're just involuntary at that age. It doesn't really matter. That's still something that caretaker experienced. she still got a whole face of poop. You know? Like that's unfair anywhere. And this person who said this to me was like, I was talking about it with my friends and family, and they're like, are you not embarrassed, like, shaming a woman? She's like, I'm not shaming anybody.
Yeah.
It's not her fault. I'm just saying that this is what I deal with at work.
Yeah, this is how
And I feel like people who are in those situations are basically just silenced because they're like, people frame it as that we are making fun of them. You can acknowledge that this was involuntary. This is not their fault. Even children who just don't know any better when it comes to issues with teaching, you can acknowledge that someone doesn't know any better, or is having an outburst that they can't control.
Oh, definitely.
While still acknowledging that this is something that a worker is dealing with, is either being screamed at or is physically harmed or anything like that. And I feel like that's a situation that society as a whole really needs to work on. Because it's not fair. There are situations where it's just not fair, and it is how it is.
Yeah.
And someone is allowed to feel frustrated that this happened to them.
Yeah, because it's just like you said, it's not something they're trying to say negatively or like bad about. It's more so like, hey, this is just my experience while working here. Just letting you guys know that it's not all pretty and sunshine all the time like most people might think at a retirement home sometimes. But hey, it is what it is. Because I remember this one time, actually reminds me of a story where they had to actually physically carry a guy in because he was like, I do not want to eat today, whatnot. No. Like, I'm not hungry, blah, blah, but they're like, no, you have to have your nutrients. You got to have your, take your medications and whatnot, but you need to take food and whatnot too. And so I just remember one day, it was like a whole thing where they had to drag him down the hallway and just like basically strap him down in a chair. And it was like,
oh my gosh.
I'm just like, what is going on? Like, this is like almost like inhuman, like humane to just do this type of thing. But it's something that they had to like, hey, like, if he doesn't eat, it's going to be a bigger issue.
Right.
But like, that's something like he didn't want to do. Like, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to eat, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, and like, he's like struggling, like, like hitting them in the face, like, no, God, let me go and whatnot. But like, no, you have to make sure that
they're getting those nutrients, that they are able to function, especially some of those medications, just medication in general. If you take it on an empty stomach, it can make you so sick.
Yeah, and then especially with elderly people, like, their systems and bodies aren't what they're used to. So it can't handle things as, so if they took a pill on an empty stomach, be far more consequences than if we might have, taken some pills on, like Tylenol on an empty stomach, So, yeah, that was like a little bit hard to see, just seeing that, like, I know they need the food, they have to have their meal and their medication, but seeing them do it in that way is like...
Well, I feel like that's something that could even be like a misconception kind of thing about retirement homes. Because I feel like in this day and age, if someone were to see that happen, someone could very easily start recording, look at these caretakers, look at what they're doing to this old man. But at the end of the day, that's something that does have to happen. And that is so hard for some people to understand. And it's hard to accept that is a part of your job, that sometimes you do have to use... I don't even want to say, like, force sounds so harsh and it sounds so malicious. Like, it sounds like it has a negative connotation, but at the end of the day, like, you have to change their diaper. That's a hazard. That's a health risk. You have to change their diaper. You have to make sure that they're eating.
Basic, those human necessities,
Exactly. And that's so hard.
I remember talking to the nurse who was like a part of that whole situation. He was like, it was a long day. It was a tough day because like he was like the nicest guy too. And he's like, I did not want to put my hands on this person, like just like guiding them over. But it's just like either that, also like the families trust these caretakers to make sure they get their nutrients, make sure their well-beings are all kept up. And so it's just like, dude, I feel you, man. Like,
that's gotta be so heavy on their heart all day. Like, you're forming such a bond with these individuals, and then knowing that, gosh, I just had to do that, and that stinks. Like, that must be so heavy to carry also when you get to that point.
And there's some instances where I remember this one guy has Alzheimer's, and so I would have the same conversations with this person, and then like also like would always be asking me like what my name was, or like giving me the wrong name at times. But like, I'm not gonna be like, oh no, why'd you forget my name, But this is like
this level of understanding.
exactly like sympathy of like, oh, this is what they're going through, and it's like their condition. It's not something they chose,
Exactly.
but it's something that's just part of their life now.
Absolutely.
And you have to accept it fully and be like, oh, like every day I'm talking to this person, I'll come with a smile, making sure like, oh yeah, I'm doing great today. Oh, my name is Steven. I had to say Steven at the time. I wasn't Stove at the time.
In case anyone wasn't aware, Stove is not his legal name. His parents did not name him after a kitchen appliance.
But not to be clear.
In case we weren't aware. Well, there are people naming their children interesting things today, so maybe they might have.
That's true. Sometimes some people's names are just random letters, So.
Oh my gosh, that's a different episode.
That is a different episode.
But yeah, and it's something that I feel like people listening for the moment will hear you say that and be like, well, yeah, that's common decency. But there's so many people that don't have that.
Yeah, and especially like keep in mind, I'm still like now that I'm an adult, it like I'd be more like mindful, but like at the time I'm a teenager.
Yeah, teenagers
15-year-old.
don't always that egocentric mindset.
Exactly. It's just like, what are you doing? But I think it's also part of that is like, I would say my parents, I think, raised me well in that regard of like just making sure to treat people nicely, like the golden rule, like treat people as you want to be treated, And so, in that regard, it is so important. Like if you're gonna be mean to someone, expect to be, have some mean comments back to you,
Well, I feel like that just in all, that's such an important concept that you see people struggling with today, that like having understanding for people who may not be able to choose their situation or control their situation, and raising children, teenagers, to really be able to not only identify, accept, and adapt to that kind of situation. That's so important for all these jobs, whether it be teaching, whether it be working in a retirement home. Like that's just so essential to their quality of life, like to know that they're being handled by people who are able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it is, I would say, in those like caretaking, like it's been like customer service kind of roles, like being able to keep a smile through it all is definitely probably the hardest part. Is like, yo, this person is just being so mean to me, and they're probably having such a bad day.
Right.
But then, like, I have to make sure to uphold a certain reputation for, my job and my company that, everything's fine. Oh, but then also you got to also think about their perspective. Like, they're probably just going through a rough day, maybe.
Exactly.
So that's what makes it a little bit easier to kind of handle sometimes. Like, they're probably just having a bad day.
Right. And they might not mean it.
Exactly.
They might be in a situation where they can't necessarily control what they're saying at this time. And I think that does make it a little bit easier to know, like, maybe they don't mean they hate me.
Yeah.
Maybe, like, I would be really upset. I would be really upset. Please don't hate me. Yeah. I don't want you to hate me. I love you. Just let me love you.
Like, what did I do?
They're just going through a rough day.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't mean it.
We've all had bad days,
Yeah.
And sometimes, lashing out sometimes is like
we've all had days where we told parents we hate them.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
We don't mean it.
We don't mean it at all. Yeah. 10 minutes later, I'll come up like, I love you guys. I'm so sorry.
Drive me to the mall.
Yeah. Just realized I don't have a car.
Dang, they're taking me to the movies tonight.
Yeah.
So do you think that there are any other misconceptions that people might have about retirement homes? Because I could think about people like me, like I don't know anything about retirement homes.
Yeah.
Because I've never had to be in one, I don't think I've ever set foot in one, to be honest.
Do you not have like a family member that's...
I have a family member in hospice, but that's like different, Yeah,
that's a different, yeah.
So that's the closest thing that I have to that kind of experience. Because again, both my grandparents are still able to care for themselves, and for now,
I think like a big misconception might be is like people think like it's like this nice place that they can just drop off their parents or whatnot and just kind of let them be at times and just think that it's a resort for them so they can live their best life here. But I think working at a retirement home, I've seen like so many people just like feel lonely, I think, and want to see their families like constantly and whatnot. And so I feel like a big misconception could be like thinking this place is just like leave them alone. It's a hotel resort. It's a vacation for them for like the rest of their lives, basically. But it's not really the case. It's like they do want to always see their family. And some of these people, like you were saying earlier, they didn't want to be there by choice sometimes. And it's like, no, I would rather just be with my family for the remainder of my life, basically. It's like, when I hear that, I'll like tear up. I'm like, dude, I can't control that. Like, but I'm so sorry.
Hard.
Yeah.
And it's also hard. Like, there are some situations where family might not have time, might not have the resources. I don't actually know. This is like a random question that I just thought of. Do you know the difference between, is there a difference between a retirement home and a nursing home?
I feel like they're the same thing. I don't know. I feel like they're the same thing.
That's actually perfect, because I think that when it comes to, I love that answer actually, because I think I
was like, is that an acceptable answer?
It is, because I think that so often, like, the amount of times that I hear, oh, you don't know like random life fact, you're a teacher.
Yeah.
Just because I was a teacher doesn't mean, first of all, that I know everything in the world.
Yeah.
But just because I taught for 4 or 5 years doesn't mean that I'm an expert in teaching.
Yeah.
Like, that would be so disrespectful to like veteran teachers.
Yeah.
To say like, oh yeah, I know everything there is to know. You're far. Like, I wasn't even in for a full cycle of my license yet. Like that. So I feel like acknowledging, yeah, I worked there for a few years, or even you could have worked there for 10 years.
Yeah.
But still saying, I don't know everything there is to know. I think that's healthy.
Like a normal too.
I think it's healthy to acknowledge that, because like it's validating for other people who are like, yeah, I've been at my job for 10 years, but I don't know everything about it. I feel like that's fine.
I feel like being at a job for 10 years though, and you don't know anything about the company. It's a little alarming.
I mean like everything.
Oh, everything,
and not necessarily even just about the company, but about the field.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I feel like, and again, I think especially when it comes to life, like, you're never too old to learn something new.
Yeah.
And I love to say that a lot in a lot of my other content. You're never too old to learn something new. There's always something that someone knows more than you. Or there's always someone that knows more than you wherever that you are. There's always at least one person.
You're always going to learn something.
Right. And so I feel like being able to acknowledge, I actually don't know the answer to that question, is important in, like, grounding.
Yeah, it is. It's acknowledging that, like, hey, I don't know this. Like, maybe if you can help me, or like, willing to be like open about it.
Or like even as a teacher, I used to remember other teachers telling me, oh, never say I don't know. Always.
Oh, really?
Yes. But I kind of took that as I'll say, why don't we find out together? You know what I mean?
I like that.
So like if a kid asked me a question, I wasn't positive. I always made a point to say, because I'm just a person. I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
I actually don't know. We find out together, and we just like take a break from whatever we're doing and we look it up.
That's a smart way to do. Okay.
This is what this source says.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Should we check another source, or we feel confident with that answer? Oh yeah, okay, we feel confident with that. Let's move on from this then. Or if you don't know and you're gonna look up something later, you let them know, I don't know, but I'll get back to you.
Yep.
But you have to make sure you do get back to them.
Yeah.
Like, you have to follow up. That's so important to me, is like always do that following up.
Because they ask the question and then they're like waiting for you for like days, like, hold on.
Well, like, even if they forget, because a lot of times kids, like 30 minutes later, like they'll forget, and then they'll remember 5 years later, oh, Miss Rogers never answered my question. But I feel like it just teaches accountability, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, being an adult in whatever kind of role of power.
Yeah.
And just being able to be honest of, I don't know the answer to that question, but I will find that out, and then actually following through.
Yeah.
I feel I'm always a big believer in showing and leading through actions, not just words. And I feel like that teaches so much, and that shows so much, and is lead by example.
Yeah, I mean, you can talk the talk, but can you walk the walk?
Yeah.
So I think that is a big, because actions do speak so much louder than words. So I do agree with you on that.
So then I have another question. This is just me being nosy.
Yeah, no.
So nosy.
Hit me.
So I don't know if we've ever talked about this before, but like I love spooky things.
Okay.
Right?
I hate spooky things.
But something that I've always thought about is, you always see these horror movies about like haunted houses and graveyards, but you never hear about haunted retirement homes.
Oh, that's
right?
interesting. Yeah.
Right? So have you experienced anything spooky? Like, I need to know. This is going to be a very validating question for me.
I gotta say, there's one time where I think I was working a little bit later, and the lights started flickering in the back break room. You don't know how scared I was. Because I hate scary stuff.
Really?
Yeah, I hate scary stuff. Like, I will prefer a Disney movie, a Pixar movie, over any horror movie, any day. So I remember, like, I was about to clock out. I was like, okay, end of the day, end of the shift, let's get home. Walking back there, and, like, it's like down like a hallway.
Uh-huh.
And then at the bake room, it started flickering. I'm like, no, this isn't happening right now. This isn't real life.
Do you get scared easily?
I do. I get scared very easily. Like, all my friends, though, I get jump scared very easily, too.
Real. I'll have to keep this in mind.
No, I don't. Actually, I am a very confident person with that. Like, I don't get scared at all, so.
See, I'm someone, I get scared easily, but, like, I do it to myself. Like, when I was younger, I would stay up till 3 a.m. watching
Like a
The
scary movie.
Exorcist,
Oh,
or, like,
my
Paranormal
gosh,
Activity,
no.
and I would, like, do it to myself on purpose, but I'm like, I live for the thrill. But, like, it's always baffled me that you don't ever hear about retirement.
That is an
being
interesting
haunted,
point.
you know?
Yeah.
But someone did send me one story.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
How, and it's so funny they described it in this way to me. I think they did it just because it's me and they know me. She said that there was a kind of like a legend that a lot of workers experienced at the retirement home that she worked in.
Okay.
That there was a man that kind of looked like he was dressed up like a Hasidic Jew. And I love that she described it that way to me because it made me laugh so hard. But that's all they could describe it. A man dressed up as a Hasidic Jew, and he didn't speak, and he just kind of, people would see him and wouldn't speak, it was a very spooky thing. And anytime anyone spotted him, within 24 hours, one of the residents passed. Isn't that so scary?
So was this person like a resident in?
They were a caretaker in a nursing home. And then there was someone else sent me a very similar story.
I'm getting goosebumps right now. I don't like that.
I live for the spooky.
Keep
I'm
going.
like ready for Halloween.
I'm like sweating right now.
Someone sent me a very similar story of how it was just a known thing that whenever the residents started asking about the little girl running down the halls within the week, they would pass. And there was no little girl. But the moment there would be times where residents would ask about the little girl running down the hall.
Oh my god.
And within the week, every time to no fail.
Oh,
and so I believe in that stuff, man. I almost said the word. In the case y'all don't, I don't cuss on my channels. There are kids that watch.
Oh yeah,
you know?
family friendly.
Yeah, okay, yeah. There are kids that watch. We try to keep it clean, just in
and
case
PG.
there are kids around.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But I believe in that stuff, man. Like, I love the thrill.
So do you believe in ghosts and stuff?
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
I have another one, and
Yeah.
it's not necessarily spooky, but it's like in the realm.
Oh
you
boy,
know?
okay.
It's not. So there was.
I'm gonna cry.
No. This is more like you'll
Okay,
like this
yeah.
one. I think. I hope. I loved this one.
I just get up and walk out. I'm like, no, we're done.
There was a caretaker
Mm-hmm.
who, when residents came to the point that they were bedridden,
Yeah.
would make a point to go and read to them each day to,
Okay.
make sure that they
Like comfort them,
absolutely
like make sure
still
they
had company.
Yeah.
And when she was going consistently, this one resident that usually was very introverted, closed off, she kind of started opening up.
Mm-hmm.
And so one day when she finished reading, as she was starting to close the book, the woman sat up, grabbed her arm, looked her in the eye, and said, "I appreciate you coming to read to me every day.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give you some life advice. If you're ever in a pickle, just find you the nearest farm, because I'm going to let you know those hogs eat anything." And just kind of laid back down. And she was just like, "Thank you for that."
Thank you for the life advice.
And like, do you watch? I'm a Criminal Minds girly. Do you like watch that stuff?
Not really.
Those hogs will eat anything.
Oh really?
Oh, yes.
Just like eat
So like,
humans?
yeah, they will eat bones. Yeah, like I want to know.
What?
I want to know what that woman did when she was younger. Like, I'm intrigued. Like, that's a thing. Like,
No.
that's how you cover up a crime scene.
Feed them to the hogs.
Yeah, not that I condone murder. I don't do that. We don't like that. Don't do that, kids.
Oh boy.
that's bad. But like, that woman has seen things.
Yeah,
And
to
I
say
wanna know
that.
What?
Yeah.
I want to know what.
Oh my God. So did the caretaker knew kind of like the whole meaning behind the hog?
Oh,
so
yeah,
so she was
yeah.
like, what?
Yeah, she was like, oh,
Thank you, I
thank
guess.
you.
I'll keep reading to you
Yeah,
though.
like, see you tomorrow, Gladys.
Yeah.
Well, have a great day. Thank you for looking out for me.
That wasn't as bad as the
See, it's not spooky,
that's
but it's
asthma,
like
yeah.
in the realm, you know?
Those stories make my flickering light thing look like nothing now. Because I was scared of the flickering lights, but I get scared easily.
Oh, that's okay. But I think that, everyone, wherever you work, no matter what job, you have such different experiences.
You do. That's true, yeah.
Like, I have another creator friend that also worked as a waitress in a retirement home.
Yeah.
And even though it's the same job as you, I want to know what her experience was.
She's probably had a totally.
Yeah,
She
like,
might have. Yeah.
When I go to Nashville, I want to talk to her. I want to see if she experienced the same thing. Does she see ghosts? I need to know. I just want to know if there's any. See, I'm showing my true colors of like I'm a spook.
I'm a Ghostbuster.
I love this stuff.
Yeah.
I want to know what she's experienced. I want to know, has she gotten a face full of diaper poop? I don't know. I want to know.
Yeah, I will say I'm thankful I haven't gotten a face full of poop and
Right, but it
stuff, but
happens,
it does happen though. But
And you just kind of acknowledge that there are some jobs where you deal with a little bit of extra, but when your heart is in the right place and you're there because you genuinely want to make a difference and want to help people.
Yeah.
Like that's really what it's all about.
it is, yeah. And then I think working in a retirement home, the important thing is knowing that you're there to just help them and just make sure they just feel comfortable,
Right.
and at peace, because like they're pretty lonely. It's kind of sad
Right.
too, and it is like a level of expectation you need to have coming into a workplace like this,
Exactly.
So
Well, then are there any last thoughts that you want to leave any of our listeners with? Anything that you want them to know about retirement homes or people who work in retirement homes or anything in general?
I will say that if you are thinking about working at a retirement home, just go in with an open mind and know that the people there are going to be one of the sweetest people you'll ever meet, because it is like everyone there usually have an open mind. They're all like a caregiving kind of mindset, and so it's just know that you're joining a big family. Basically, is how I felt, and from my experience working at a retirement home. So, best of luck to you guys. But I will say though, it is something that I don't know if I see myself going back to working at a retirement
I
home,
get
but
that. I mean, I loved my time as a teacher, but I don't believe that I will ever go back. Like, I think it's fine to go into a job, do right by the job and the people at the job, and just know that you're moving on, and that's
just have a
okay.
different path in life,
I think that's
just grow
fine.
up. Yeah,
Absolutely. I think
But-
that's fair.
I will say overall, my experience at working at a retirement home it was lovely. Minus a couple things, but
Yeah, there's always something.
a couple things at every job, exactly.
That's just a part of it. As long as when your heart's in the right place, truly, those couple things
or really
I think
nothing.
it's very normal and healthy to vent about them and to talk about them and acknowledge that you experienced them, but you still go back the next day with a smile on your face,
Exactly.
knowing that you're going to do right by people. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me today.
Well,
Flo.
thank you for having me. This is
absolutely.
my first podcast, so
You did great.
I had a great time.
Good.
So
Awesome. See, we're good at just sitting and chatting.
I like this.
Yeah.
I like this a lot.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much for hanging out with us and chatting with us. And I hope to see you guys next week and hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye, my lovelies. Bye.